starting. So, hello and welcome everyone to the Live Limitless Summit, where we are going to talk all about how to have empowered, conscious, and radiant relationship with self and others. So, life is all about relationship, whether it is with self, with is your environment, or your friends, spouse, kids. Everything is relationship. Money. How do you have those radiant relationship? How do you have those conscious and a long lasting relationship with everyone in your life? So this is what we are going to, my experts across the globe are going to share their viewpoints on how they have made their life beautiful and the nuggets which they have to share with everyone. And I'm your host, and I help people globally in clearing their pain, traumas, and limiting beliefs so that they can reach their full potential. So today we have a very special guest with us, Crystal. Hello, Crystal.
Hi.
It's nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Yes, Crystal is a speaker, author, mindfulness, meditation, and self empowerment coach, and the founder of Mindful Shift, an organization that helps to elevate global awareness. She has spent the last 10 years helping trauma survivors to take back their own power and enjoy a life of freedom and joy. So, Crystal, I'm very excited to dive in deeper with you. And as you share, are you going to share the three steps of having fulfilled relationships? So, before we dive deeper into it, I want to know more that what is this purpose which you have right now, and you are on that journey to create a empowered world. People who know how the relations has to be, or the one key which is keeping you from those fulfilled relationship. So would you like to share a little bit about you, and then from there we take forward?
Sure. So I help people to take back their power. So a lot of times, we feel powerless. We feel like, you know, people are conspiring against us, the world is conspiring against us, and that we really don't have a choice in the things that happen to us, in the situations that we're in. And we do a lot of things based on what others expectations of us are, not realizing that we actually have the power to make the choices for our own lives. And being by taking the power in and making the choices for our own lives, we work our way towards whatever it is that's going to make us happy, instead of living life for other people. So a lot of times we have a tendency, and it's human nature, right? We want to make other
Yes.
people happy. And we think that by making others happy, that's going to make us happy. And while living a life of service is important, there's a difference between living a life of service and giving your entire self to someone, or an organization, or your family, or your friends, and really not living for yourself. So there's a complete and very distinct difference. And what I help my clients do is understand that there is a distinct difference between being of service and using that life of service to be happy, as opposed to giving all of yourself to your spouse, your family, your children, your work, and things like that. And in making that shift,
Hmm.
you learn how to actually be happier, because you can figure out what it is that you want to do, as opposed to what other people want you to do. And that's kind of where we get into the relationships. Is relationships are very dynamic, whether it's a
Yes.
relationship with a spouse or a partner, or your friends, your family, your children, particularly really, really close relationships, specifically with family, because I know family has a tendency to have, you can have really traumatic relationships with your family. And we have a tendency to, we don't know how to say no. So we do things that we don't really want to do, and that's really draining for us. And it can be really detrimental to our health, because we're doing all
Yes.
this stuff for other people, and we're not really taking any time for ourselves. And so, like, the very first thing that I want to point out for relationships is, to have a really good, healthy relationship is to set boundaries. And this is something that's really, really,
Really.
really difficult for people to do, is to set a boundary, because we're afraid that if we say no, or if we tell someone, I would really appreciate it if you didn't come over, unannounced, and just let yourself in, that we're really going to upset people. And that's the thing. We don't want to hurt people's feelings,
Yes.
but sometimes you have to hurt people's feelings. Like, there's no way around it. You really just can't get past hurting people's feelings. And every time that you say no to someone else, you're saying yes to yourself.
Yes.
And a lot of my clients, they don't realize that. And when I tell them, by saying no to, you have a cousin that you haven't seen in forever, and they're inviting you to all their kids' birthday parties because they've got like 7 kids, and you feel obligated to go, and your family's, trying to make you feel guilty, but you really don't want to go. Number one, it's going to take you time. Number two, it's going to cost you money. And number three, you really just don't want to spend time with those people, but you feel this sick sense of obligation because people are like, they expect you to do this. And so saying no to that is actually saying yes to yourself. So maybe, you're freeing up time to do something for yourself, to do something that you really enjoy or that you really need to do, as opposed to, spending time with these people.
So, Crystal, I have a question out here. Is it so difficult to set boundaries? I mean, it's just a matter of choice. But how do you suggest your clients? I mean, I can imagine, when people come to you, they really don't know, first of all, that they have a choice to say no and set that boundary. So, how do you go with that process, and how do you explain them out? And how one can set boundaries? Can we know a little bit more about it? Like, do you use mindfulness, or how do you do that?
Right. So setting a boundary, it can be really, really terrifying,
Exactly.
honestly. Um, Particularly for women, because we are trained from childhood that it's our responsibility to take care of everybody else.
Yes.
And we're not taught that self-care is essential, but you can't fill from an empty cup. So anybody that's ever flown on an airplane, when they're going through their little safety spiel and they're talking about the exits and all this stuff,
Yes.
the one thing that they tell you is put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
And they tell you that because if you can't breathe, then you're not going to be any use to anybody else. And so by setting a boundary, by whatever it is that something, so this is something that I've recently had to do. There's someone in my life that just comes over unannounced, and they just let themselves in our house without calling, knocking, or anything. And it happened a couple times, and I was like, okay, well, maybe, this, I don't know, just kind of rationalizing, right? You see, you rationalize the behavior and you say, okay, well, maybe it's a one-off thing or whatever. But then when it continues to happen, if I don't tell that person that I don't appreciate that behavior, they don't know, right? Because we're not mind readers. People aren't mind readers. And
Yes.
if you don't tell people, I don't like it when you do that. I don't appreciate it when you talk to me that way. I don't like it, when you just show up unannounced. I would appreciate it. And instead of saying it in a way to make them feel defensive, right? By attacking them, by saying, you are doing this and I don't like it, because that immediately puts the other person on the defensive, right? And so they're going to feel attacked and they're going to attack back. Instead of putting it on them, put it on you and just say, you know what? It really makes me feel. And when you say it makes me feel, or this makes me feel, instead of you make me feel, because if you're putting it on them, you're saying like, this is all on you and it's not really me. This makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel scared when I'm not expecting somebody to come over and all of a sudden it's opening and I'm like, oh my God, who's coming in my front door? It literally makes me feel terrified.
Yes.
And so by saying like, this situation makes me feel, then they stop to think, oh, okay, well maybe I am doing something wrong or inappropriate, or I should, change my behavior. And then you just say, I would appreciate it if you would call before you come over, just let me know that you're here. If you're here, knock on the door to make sure that I'm not asleep, or I'm aware that you're here, so you're not just walking in and terrifying me. So by, instead of, attacking, just say like, this makes me feel, and because we want to help people, right? This is just how we're wired. Because we want to help people, they're immediately going to do like, think, what can I do to help make this situation better?
Yes. That is how
So
lovely you presented it, just putting it in yourself and expressing it the way you are feeling instead of putting it onto them. Lovely. So, Crystal,
yeah.
how you use a lot of mindfulness techniques. So, how we can use these techniques in having a better relationship or happy, loving relationships?
So one of the things that we have to understand is that every person is an individual, right? We all have our own wants and needs and desires, and we all have feelings, and we all want to help people. And if we can remember that people aren't mind readers, and that if we have an expectation, so this is like the number two big relationship killer, is expectations and unmet expectations. So if we have an expectation for someone to do something and we don't tell them that this is an expectation, and they don't meet the expectation, and then we get upset, you know obviously this is something that it's never going to work, right? Because we have something we want someone, so say I want you, Nipam, to do this thing, and I want you to do it, and then you don't do it, and then I get upset because you don't do what I didn't tell you I wanted you to do. But this happens all the time. And so by remembering that if we have these things that we want people to do, telling them, like, just being mindful and saying, okay, maybe she doesn't understand that I really kind of need this today, and I need it by 2 p.m. in order to meet a deadline, or I need it today, and maybe I told you I needed it today, but I didn't tell you I needed it by 2 p.m., and then you send it at 8 p.m., and then it's late, and we're going to constantly be disappointed by people. And this is one of the things that I think is one of the biggest problems with a lot of relationships is
Yes.
we have all these things that we just, unexpressed feelings, unexpressed desires, unexpressed, expectations. And then when people don't meet the feelings, desires, or expectations, we become really, really upset and frustrated. And so we need to constantly pay attention to what it is that we're doing to ourselves, what we're thinking in our heads, and what we're expecting from other people.
So, what could be the underlying reason of not expressing and having those expectations? Could it be something to do with your own inner self?
Yes. And it's interesting because I have found that talking about feelings is
Hmm.
something that, and it's regardless of where you are in the world, it doesn't
Yes.
really matter. It's not something that's commonly taught as a practice.
True. Very true.
You
I
just don't
can.
express your feelings. You don't tell people you love them. You don't tell people that you care about them. You don't tell people that you need them to do things. Particularly telling people that you need them to do things, because we don't want people to think that we're weak, because asking for help is considered a sign of weakness.
How true is that, actually?
So, we really don't ask for help. So I think expressing these feelings and saying, like, I need you to do this for me.
Yes. True.
It's like telling them, okay, I have this moment of weakness, and in order to feel fulfilled, you have to do this thing for
Yes.
me. And
True.
it's just a really foreign concept. And I think it's truly sad how we're just it's so ingrained in us to do all these things for ourselves, and
Yes.
not expect any help from other people in return. And then again, to not tell these people, like, I have this expectation of you,
Hmm.
you
So,
know.
Crystal, what kind of people generally you see, and what kind of help you provide them? Can you just let us know? I mean, what kind of situations you've come across with your clients, and how how we just sorted out with these practices, being mindful and just expressing, with any example, if you can just let our viewers know about that, and it's
So
simple.
I, yeah, no, I mainly work with trauma survivors, and the trauma survivors that I work with are typically abuse victims.
Okay.
And I like to work with abuse victims because I was a victim of abuse. And because I was a victim of abuse, I didn't understand how a healthy relationship was supposed to work because I was in, the cycle of abuse and would leave one abusive relationship and go into another one and go into another one. And because of all of the things that happened to me in my life, I really hated myself. I didn't have a good relationship with self because as a victim of childhood abuse, became a people pleaser because I felt like if I tried to be perfect, absolutely perfect, like typical overachiever, if I
Yes.
did everything perfect, then maybe today I wouldn't get yelled at, or maybe today I wouldn't get hit. But it never worked. And so I just kept pushing myself to be more and more and more and do more and achieve more. And so I became like this really crazy neurotic people pleaser, and I hated my life. I really hated my life, and I chose alcohol as an escape. So I was an alcoholic, and I attempted suicide multiple times because it was really, really difficult trying to deal with the pressure from myself to achieve, and to deal with all this stuff that I had going on. And so when I stopped drinking, I still needed a way to cope, and I didn't really know how to do that in a healthy way. And I ended up finding out about mindfulness and meditation. And so, meditation really kind of helps me just get out of my head, and mindfulness really helps me to shift my focus. So whenever, because we all have I call it the never ending hamster wheel of negativity
Yes.
that is just going constantly in your head. It's constantly reminding you of all the things that you haven't done, all the people that you're disappointing, all of the ways you haven't measured up. So every time one of those thoughts appears in my head, I make a choice to choose something different. I tell that thought, like, thank you for telling me this. And it's a protection mechanism. It's something that we've evolved over the years to, and it just kind of helps to keep us safe, right? But we're not living in a time where there's like dinosaurs and saber-toothed tigers and stuff like that. So it's a defense mechanism that we have that really is outdated, but we haven't kind of evolved far enough yet for it to kind of be gone away. So we really need to be mindful about these thoughts and what they're doing to us and what they can do to relationships, right? Because these thoughts, when we have a relationship and we have an unmet need or an unmet expectation, it will constantly remind us, oh, he didn't help you with that. Oh, remember, he didn't do that. And then so then you it's like a tiger. It sinks its claws into that thought, and it just chews and chews and chews and chews on it, and it just goes over and over and over in your head. And the more it goes over, the more stressed out you get, the more upset you get, the more frustrated you get. And before you know it, you're just like a rage monster. You turn into the Hulk because you're like, I can't believe this. And it's just that one thought that you're constantly replaying over and over and over in your head that really, really makes you upset. And so using mindfulness to choose a different thought. So instead of saying, he didn't do this, think about what he did do.
Yes.
Think about what she did do. Think about all of the good things, because your brain never reminds you of all the great things. It never tells you, remember that time that you got that award? Remember that time those people were awesome to you? Remember those times? Like,
Yes.
it
How true
never
is that?
tells you the good stuff.
Yes.
So you have to consciously choose to think of the good stuff. And one of the things that I do is I have a gratitude journal and I have a gratitude jar. And so when I'm having days where I'm feeling really upset or really bummed out, or somebody, I feel hurt by someone. And that's the thing, like, no one can hurt you. Not They can hurt you physically, but like it's, you are allowing it by,
Yes.
thinking these thoughts and just repeating them over and over and over in your head. So whenever you're having a thought of a negative thing or a negative situation with another person, grab your gratitude jar and pull out, these good thoughts about things, or, grab your gratitude journal and think about all, read all the wonderful things that you have in your life and all the things that you have to be grateful for. And don't think about, the negative things, because all the negative things do is cause stress. And stress is the number 3 silent killer in the world. Like, nobody talks about how bad stress is for you. So, shifting your thoughts from negative to positive will, completely transform your life.
Lovely. How amazing is that? And I just love that idea of having a jar and just putting and reading the journal. That's really amazing, Crystal. So, Crystal, tell me what one should do when they are going through an abusive relationship. I mean, how they can, what should be the step for them to take, the next step to just overcome that, and how they can be out of that cycle or the pattern.
So, getting out of an abusive relationship is never really easy. But I can tell you that people will only treat you how you accept them treating you. So if you stop accepting the treatment, if you stop putting up with it, then they can't do it to you anymore. So if you say, I am no longer going to tolerate this behavior, and you have to get to that point where you say, I am no longer going to tolerate this behavior. I'm not going to tolerate you talking to me this way. And, a lot of us live in toxic relationships. And a lot of the toxic relationships are with family members. And we feel some sick sense of obligation because they're family. Like,
Yes.
oh, it's my mom, oh, it's my dad, so I can't, I can't cut the ties. But if I stop talking to my sister, then my grandmother's going to be upset. But you know what? Sometimes you need to say, like, this isn't good behavior. This is not a really good relationship. And in order to protect yourself, you need to get away and you need to do whatever you can. And the first thing to do is just making the choice. You have to make the choice that this is not something that I am willing to tolerate any longer. And once you make that choice, then it becomes so easy. You see all the signs, you see all the different ways that you can get away, or that you can get out of the relationship, or that you can stop. But unless you make the choice, it's not going to change. So it's like any process, right? If you don't choose to do something, then
Amazing,
you'll
amazing,
never
Crystal.
ever, yeah,
Just
accomplish.
a step to choose. I mean, that's how you can be, and then I think the whole universe will
Yeah,
conspire to bring that to you.
yeah,
That's really amazing. Okay, would you like to just share some few tips how they can have beautiful relationship, how they can nurture their relationship, a step by few pointers which our viewers can take away after watching us?
again, the first one is, stop expecting things from people without telling them that you expect it. you know the one of the most frustrating things, again, is unmet expectations. We
Yes.
expect things from people, and when they don't deliver, we become upset, and then we're upset with them for
Yeah.
not meeting this thing that they didn't know that they were supposed to. And that's not fair to them.
Yes.
That it's not, it's just so not fair to that person because they don't know. And then you get frustrated and you snap at them, and then they're like, what in the world did I do? And you're like, you know what you did, and they have
Yes.
no clue. They're
They have
like,
no
I
clue exactly. Yes. So
um
expression is a key point out here.
yes.
Express it out.
Another one is acceptance.
Yes.
We can't we One of the biggest frustrating things, and we see it in the world today. I mean, you see what's going on, and I don't know where you are, but here in the US, it's absolutely awful. everybody wants everybody to be like everybody else, but it's not the
Same
way the
here.
world
I
is.
It's same here in Mumbai. I mean, I'm from India, so it's like a rat race. Nobody wants to be themselves. It's like, okay, this is what I want to be. But what about you? I mean, you are every
Yeah.
person is a gift on its own.
Yeah, yeah, just accepting who you are as an individual and
Exactly.
loving yourself
Yes.
completely. Fat, old, thin, unhealthy,
Yes.
whatever. I mean, like we're blessings. We're so blessed to be here. And a lot of people, we just have a tendency to take ourselves,
Yes.
our bodies for granted, and just love yourself. Put on your own oxygen mask first
Hmm.
and then work on helping save other people. And the third thing is just accept that other people are who they are, and they're not like, you might think that they're here to make you happy, but they're not. Honestly, the only person that can make you happy is yourself. And if your happiness hinges on another person or another situation or something like that, you will never, ever, ever be happy. It just can't happen. The only person who's responsible for your own happiness is you. And once you realize that and you work towards making yourself happy, doing things that make you happy, then you'll truly realize how powerful you are and how amazing you are and how wonderful your life can truly be.
Thank you so much, Crystal, for your time and everything, all the wisdom which you shared with us out here. Thank you, everyone, for being here and listening to us. If you want to connect with us, you can join my Facebook group where I go deeper in each topic. So, till then, stay safe, stay happy, and be yourself, and the world will be yours.